Ethan's face went from a smug grin to something closer to a white sheet as the lawyer said, "And to my beloved ex-husband, Marcus Thompson." My son's hand gripped the mahogany armrest so hard I heard the wood crack. His fiancée, Emily, leaned forward, her diamond earrings catching the winter sunlight streaming through the floor to ceiling windows of what used to be Victoria's corner office. I watched Mr. Kim, the lawyer, pause just long enough to look at me over his reading glasses. There was something in his eyes, recognition, maybe sympathy. I'd taught him chemistry 20 years ago at Riverside High. He'd been a C student till I stayed after class with him every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. Now here he was, reading my ex-wife's will in a penthouse I'd only seen in photographs. The coffee cup trembled slightly in my hand. 2 weeks ago, I'd stood in the back of Victoria's funeral, ignored by most attendees, invisible to my own son. I'd worn my one good suit, the navy one I kept for weddings and funerals. It had lasted 15 years. Victoria's casket probably cost more than everything I owned. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. The registered letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after the funeral. I'd been grading chemistry papers for the kids I tutored at the community center. I'd retired from teaching 2 years ago, but old habits die hard. When you've spent 35 years trying to make 16-year-olds understand ionic bonds, retirement doesn't mean you stop caring. The envelope was heavy, cream-colored, with Victoria's company seal embossed in gold. My neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, saw me holding it in the hallway. "What's that, Marcus? Looks fancy." "It's from my ex-wife's estate," I said, turning it over in my hands. "I think they want me at the will reading." Mrs. Rodriguez had lived across the hall for 12 years. She'd seen me on good days and bad, watched me build a life from the pieces left after the divorce. She put her hand on my shoulder. "You loved her once. Maybe you should go, even if it hurts." I almost threw the letter away 3 times that week. What business did I have at Victoria Chen's will reading? We'd been divorced for 15 years. Our son Ethan hadn't called me Dad in at least 5. He called me Marcus when he called at all, which wasn't often. The last time I'd heard from him was 2 Christmases ago, a text message that said, "Can't make it this year. Busy with work." Victoria and I met in college. I was a chemistry major with dreams of research. She was pre-med with ambitions that filled entire rooms. We married young, had Ethan younger. For a while, we were happy. I taught high school, came home to a son who thought I hung the moon, a wife who still looked at me like I was someone special. Then Victoria's mother got sick. Cancer. The treatments were experimental, expensive, ultimately unsuccessful. Victoria watched her mother suffer, watched the medical bills destroy her father, and something changed in her eyes. She went back to school, got her MBA, joined a pharmaceutical company. Within 10 years, she was running it. The problem wasn't that she succeeded. I was proud of her. The problem was what success cost. Ethan was 12 when Victoria started missing his soccer games. 14 when she forgot his birthday because of a merger in Singapore. 16 when scandal hit. The company had released a diabetes medication that showed promising results in trials. Victoria had pushed it through, believing it would help millions. But reports started surfacing severe side effects, inadequately disclosed risks. The FDA investigated. News crews camped outside our house. Victoria's face was on every channel, painted as a corporate villain who prioritized profits over patients. I knew the truth. I'd watched her stay up nights reviewing every research paper, every trial result. She'd been deceived by subordinates who'd hidden data, massaged numbers. But the media didn't care about nuance. Neither did Ethan. "How could you defend her?" My son had screamed at me one night, his face red with teenage fury and embarrassment. "Everyone at school is calling her a murderer, and you're just... what? Standing by her? Because she's your mother?" I'd said quietly. "Because she's a good person who made mistakes trusting the wrong people. Because that's what family does." Ethan had looked at me with something close to disgust. "You're weak, Dad. That's why she doesn't respect you. That's why nobody respects you." I held a press conference the next day. It wasn't planned. I just showed up at the courthouse steps where Victoria was facing a deposition. A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. "Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to say about your wife's role in this scandal?" I looked directly into the camera. My wife is the most ethical person I know. She trusted people who betrayed that trust. The real criminals are the ones who manipulated data and put profits above patience. Victoria Chen built her career trying to help people. Don't let this destroy what she's worked for. Victoria was watching from a car window nearby. I saw her face, saw the tears she quickly wiped away. That night, she came home late. I was waiting in the kitchen. Why did you do that, Marcus? Because it's true. Because you needed someone in your corner. She sat down across from me, and for a moment, she was just Victoria again, not CEO Victoria Chen, not the woman on the news, just my wife. You still believe in me. Always. She reached for my hand, then pulled back. That's exactly why I can't let you do this anymore. What are you talking about? Marcus, they're going to come after me hard. My lawyers say it could get ugly criminal charges, civil suits, years of litigation. I won't let you be collateral damage. I won't watch you suffer because you love me. That's not your choice to make. Yes, she said, standing up. It is. I've already filed for divorce. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. You'll get everything you're entitled to, half the pre-scandal assets, the house if you want it, support payments. But we're done. I sat there, stunned. You're pushing me away to protect me? I'm pushing you away because I have to. Because if I don't, you'll go down with me. And you don't deserve that. You never did. Victoria, don't make this harder than it is. Please, Marcus, just let me do this one decent thing. She walked out. I didn't fight it. Maybe Ethan was right, maybe I was weak. Or maybe I understood that Victoria was doing what she thought was love, even if it felt like betrayal. The divorce was finalized in 6 months. Victoria was cleared of criminal charges a year later. Turns out her instincts were right about the data manipulation. But the damage was done. She threw herself into rebuilding the company, turning it into something better, more transparent. Ethan went to law school, landed a job at a competitor firm, made it very clear whose side he was on. I kept teaching, kept tutoring kids who couldn't afford private lessons, kept living in a modest apartment in a neighborhood where people knew your name. Mrs. Rodriguez said I was building a legacy, even if no one wrote articles about it. So when that letter arrived, I almost didn't go. What did I have to do with Victoria's world anymore? But Mrs. Rodriguez was right. I'd loved her once. Maybe I still did. Maybe that was enough reason to show up. The penthouse was exactly what I'd expected. Cold elegance, expensive art, a view of the city that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. Mr. Kim greeted me at the door. Mr. Thompson, he said, shaking my hand. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't. Thank you for the invitation, though I'm not sure why I'm here. Something flickered across his face. Mrs. Chen was very specific about who should attend. Please, come in. We're waiting for one more person. That person arrived 10 minutes later, in a tailored suit that probably cost 3 months of my pension. Ethan swept in with Emily on his arm, talking into his phone about quarterly projections and market shares. He didn't see me at first. I was sitting in one of the side chairs, trying to be invisible. Then he did. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. Marcus, what are you doing here? Not Dad. Not even Father. Just Marcus. I was invited, I said quietly. Emily looked between us, confused. She was young, pretty in a calculated way, wearing the kind of jewelry that announced status. Ethan, who's this? My father, Ethan said, his voice flat. He turned to Mr. Kim. Is this some kind of joke? Why is he here? Your mother named him in the will. Ethan laughed, not a happy sound. Of course she did. Probably left him a thank you for the memories check. 10 grand? 20? He looked at me. You can wait in the hallway if you want, Marcus. This is family business. I started to stand, my face burning with humiliation, when Mr. Kim spoke up. Mr. Thompson stays. He's specifically named as a primary beneficiary. The word hung in the air. Ethan's face darkened. Primary? That's impossible. I'm her son. The company goes to me. The penthouse, the accounts, all of it. That's how inheritance works. That's how it typically works, Mr. Kim said carefully. But your mother had different wishes. Ethan brought his own lawyer, Mr. Bradford, a sharp-featured man with a briefcase that screamed expensive retainer. They sat on one side of the conference table. I sat on the other, feeling like I'd wandered into the wrong movie. Emily leaned close to Ethan, whispering loud enough for me to hear. Don't worry, baby. Even if he gets something, you'll get the important stuff. The company, the properties. That's what matters. Ethan patted her hand absently, his eyes on Mr. Kim. Let's just get this over with. I have a meeting at 4. Mr. Kim opened the will folder. It was thick, bound in leather, the kind of document that represented a life's work. Before we begin with the distribution, Mrs. Chen requested that certain items be acknowledged first. He read through a list. 50,000 to Miss Park, Victoria's assistant, for 20 years of loyalty. $500,000 to Riverside Orphanage. I sat up straighter at that when I volunteered there twice a week, helping kids with homework. Did Victoria know that? $100,000 to establish the Marcus Thompson Chemistry Scholarship at Riverside High School. My throat tightened. I hadn't known. All those years, and she'd been watching somehow, seeing what I'd been doing with my ordinary little life. Ethan was getting impatient. Can we skip to the real stuff? The company? The estate? What about this penthouse? Mr. Bradford cleared his throat. My client has a point. These are charitable donations, but we need to discuss the primary assets. Of course, Mr. Kim said. He pulled out another document. Now, the primary estate. Ethan leaned forward. Emily gripped his hand, her engagement ring catching the light 3 carats. I'd heard him brag about it at the funeral, to someone who'd congratulated him on inheriting the Chen fortune. To my son, Ethan Marcus Thompson, Mr. Kim read, I leave the sum of $500,000 to be distributed in quarterly installments over 5 years. I also leave him my watch collection, which includes pieces his grandfather collected. And I leave him this letter. The silence was deafening. What? Ethan's voice cracked. What about the company? The penthouse? The accounts? That's only $500,000 out of $42 million? I'm not finished, Mr. Kim said quietly. This is insane. Ethan jumped up, his chair scraping against the hardwood. She left me $500,000? I'm her son, her only child. Bradford, tell them this is undue influence or... Mr. Thompson, please sit down, Bradford said. But even he looked shocked. Mr. Kim continued, his voice steady. To Marcus Raymond Thompson, my ex-husband, and the man I failed to cherish when I had the chance, I leave the remainder of my estate. This includes 85% ownership in Chen Pharmaceuticals, valued at approximately $38 million, the penthouse apartment and all its contents, and all personal accounts totaling $3.7 million. The room spun. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. $41.7 million to me, to Marcus Thompson, retired high school chemistry teacher who'd spent the last 15 years living in a 1-bedroom apartment with plumbing that protested every winter. No. Ethan's voice shattered the stunned silence. This is fraud. He manipulated her. Bradford, tell them we're challenging this. Mr. Bradford was already shaking his head. The will has been validated by 3 separate firms. Mr. Thompson, it's airtight. I don't care. He's been what, visiting her? Influencing her? Poisoning her against me? I haven't seen your mother in 15 years, I said quietly. The words felt thick in my mouth. Not since the divorce. Liar! Then why would she? He couldn't finish, his face red with rage and confusion and something that might have been pain. There's more, Mr. Kim said. He pressed a button on a remote, and a screen descended from the ceiling. Victoria's face appeared, and my breath caught. She looked older than I remembered, thinner, but her eyes, I'd know those eyes anywhere. Hello, Ethan, her recorded voice said. If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you're probably very angry right now. I don't blame you. You expected everything, and I gave you what felt like nothing. Let me explain why. Ethan stood frozen, staring at his mother's image. You stopped calling me Mom when you were 22. Right after you found out the company was worth millions. You started calling me Victoria, like I was a business associate. Every conversation became about strategy, market position, inheritance planning. You asked me 3 times in the last year when I was going to retire so you could take over the legacy. Emily shifted uncomfortably beside Ethan. Marcus never asked me for anything. Not during the divorce, not after. He could have taken half of everything the lawyers told me to fight him, but he didn't fight. He signed papers that left him with far less than he deserved because he said he didn't want to make it harder on me. When the scandal broke, when everyone else ran, He stood on courthouse steps and defended me. Not because he wanted something, because that's who he is. I felt tears burning in my eyes. After the divorce, I kept track of him. I know that sounds creepy, maybe it is, but I needed to know he was okay. I found out he was tutoring kids for free, setting up scholarship funds with his teacher's pension, volunteering at an orphanage. He was building something beautiful with his life, something I'd never managed to build with all my money. Victoria paused on screen, and I could see she was crying. This isn't punishment, Ethan. It's a lesson. The most important one I can give you. Money doesn't make family. Character does. You have enough to start over, to build something of your own, to prove you're more than my son, you're your own man. Use that $500,000 to find what I lost. Someone who loves you for who you are, not what you're worth. Because right now, I'm not sure you know the difference. The screen went dark. Emily stood up abruptly. Ethan, I need to think about this. Her voice was small, uncertain. Wait. I just need some time. This is a lot. She grabbed her purse and walked out, her heels clicking against the floor with increasing speed. Ethan stared after her, looking suddenly very young and very lost. Mr. Kim pulled out an envelope. Mr. Thompson Marcus, your ex-wife, predicted you'd want to give this all to Ethan. She wrote this letter specifically for you. He handed it to me. My hands shook as I opened it. Victoria's handwriting, neat and precise as always. Marcus, you'll want to refuse this. You'll say Ethan deserves it because he's my son. Don't. He needs to learn what you taught your students for 35 years. Respect is earned, not inherited. Character is built, not bought. The company has a clause. You must serve as CEO for 3 years. I know you'll hate this. You're not a businessman, you're a teacher. But these people need what you have. They need someone who cares about doing right more than doing well. Teach them like you taught your students. With patience, with integrity, with the belief that people can be better than they are. After 3 years, if you want to give Ethan shares, that's your choice. But make him earn it. Make him prove he's learned what really matters. I loved you. I showed it too late, but I loved you from the moment you defended me on those courthouse steps until the moment I wrote this letter. I'm sorry I chose pride over love, success over you, everything over us. If there's another life after this one, I hope I'm smart enough to choose differently. Thank you for being the kind of man worth loving, even when I was too foolish to hold on to you. Forever yours, Victoria. I couldn't stop the tears. 35 years of teaching, and I'd never learned how to not care when something mattered. Ethan was still standing, Mr. Bradford beside him, both looking shell-shocked. I folded the letter carefully and stood up. My knees protested I wasn't young anymore, and this day had aged me years. Ethan, I said. He didn't respond, didn't look at me. Your mother gave us both a gift today. Mine was this. I gestured at the will, the letter, the weight of $40 million I'd never wanted. Yours was time. Time? His voice was bitter. She left me pocket change, and you call it a gift? Time to prove you're more than her money. Time to build something that's yours, not inherited. Time to figure out who you are when nobody's impressed by your last name. I pulled a business card from my wallet. Simple white stock, black letters. Marcus Thompson, chemistry teacher. Same cards I'd had made 30 years ago. I wrote an address on the back. When you're ready to learn what your mother wanted you to know, I'll be at the company. Room 1405. 9 a.m. every day. I held out the card. He didn't take it. I set it on the table and walked to the door. Marcus. His voice stopped me. Not warm, but not hostile either, just confused. Yeah? Did she still care? About you? I looked back at my son, angry, entitled, lost, but still my son. Read the letter she left you, Ethan. Really read it. Then decide. I walked out into the winter afternoon, into cold air that felt cleaner somehow. Mr. Kim caught up with me at the elevator. That was decent of you, he said, offering him a chance. I'm a teacher, I said simply. It's what we do. We keep offering chances, even when we're not sure they'll be taken. I paused. Thank you, by the way, for chemistry, for that C to a B+. He smiled. You stayed every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. Never made me feel stupid, even when I couldn't understand ionic bonds to save my life. That's worth more than any of this. He gestured back toward the office. 3 months passed. I moved into an apartment closer to the company headquarters. Nothing fancy, but bigger than my old place. Mrs. Rodriguez helped me pack, kept crying and hugging me, made me promise to visit. Running a pharmaceutical company turned out to be part chemistry, part teaching, part faith. I spent the first month just listening to scientists, to ethics boards, to the people who'd worked with Victoria. I learned the language of business, but I spoke to them in the language of classroom. What's the right thing to do here? How do we help people? What would you want if this was your family? Slowly, things changed. We restructured drug trials to be more transparent, established an independent ethics board, started a program to provide medications at cost to underserved communities. The board of directors fought me on every change. I told them the same thing I used to tell students who complained about homework. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth doing. I went to the office every day at 9 a.m., just like I'd promised. Room 1405, door always open. And every day, I found myself glancing at the doorway, wondering. It was a Tuesday morning, 3 months and 4 days after the will reading, when I heard footsteps stop outside my office. I didn't look up from the research paper I was reading new protocols for diabetes medication trials, ironically enough, full circle. A knock, tentative. Come in. Ethan stood in the doorway. He looked different, thinner, tired, less polished. His suit was nice, but not ostentatious. No Rolex on his wrist. His eyes were different too, uncertain instead of arrogant. Is the offer still open? His voice was quiet. I set down the paper and really looked at my son. Depends. Are you here for the money, or because you're ready to work? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I don't know. I just know I need to figure out who I am when I'm not Victoria Chen's son or heir to millions. Emily left. Friends stopped calling when they found out I only got $500,000. Bradford dropped me as a client said I couldn't afford his rates anymore. He laughed, but it was hollow. Turns out Mom was right. I don't know who I am without the money. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Then sit down. Let's start figuring that out. Just like that? After how I treated you? Ethan, I spent 35 years teaching chemistry to teenagers who sometimes told me they hated me because I made them think. You want to know a secret? The ones who hated me loudest were usually the ones who learned the most, because they cared enough to be angry. He sat, slowly, like the chair might collapse under the weight of this conversation. Why are you doing this? He asked. Because you're my son. Because your mother loved you enough to teach you the hardest lesson. Because I'm a teacher, and we don't give up on students just because they fail the first test. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out 2 paper cups, the cheap kind from the break room, and a thermos of coffee. No contracts today. No lawyers. No negotiations. Just coffee. Just us. And you tell me, what did you learn from your mother's letter? Ethan's hands shook slightly as he took the cup. I read it 50 times, she said. She said I'd confused her love with her money. That I'd stopped seeing her as Mom and started seeing her as Victoria Chen, CEO, like she was just an ATM with my last name. Was she right? He was quiet for a long time. Outside, the city hummed with its Tuesday morning rhythm. Inside this room, a father and son sat with coffee, and 15 years of distance between them. Yeah, he finally said. She was right, and I did the same thing to you. You were just Marcus, the failure who couldn't keep up with her success. I never asked what you did after the divorce. Never asked if you were happy. I just wrote you off as irrelevant. And now? Now I'm the irrelevant one. Now I'm learning what it feels like to be valued for what you have, instead of who you are. And it sucks. I sipped my coffee. It was terrible break room. Coffee always is, but it felt right somehow. Honest. You know what I do on Thursdays? He looked confused. What? I tutor kids at the community center. Algebra, chemistry, whatever they need. Most of them can't afford private tutors. Some of them have parents who work 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. You should come with me this Thursday. Why? Because you need to see what wealth looks like when it's not measured in dollars. Because those kids will teach you more about character than any business school. Ethan stared into his coffee cup. What if I'm not good at it? Then you'll be like every other teacher on their first day, terrified and incompetent. But you'll show up on Thursday anyway, because that's what people do when they're trying to be better. He looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. My son, the boy who used to ask me to explain why the sky was blue, why water flowed downhill, why people had to say goodbye. The boy who'd believed his dad knew everything worth knowing. Can we really start over? He asked. No, I said honestly. We can't erase 15 years. But we can start from here. We can build something new. I don't know if I'll be any good at being whatever you want me to be. I don't want you to be anything except honest. With me, with yourself, everything else, we'll figure out together. He nodded slowly. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. Okay, Dad. The word hung between us like a bridge, fragile, but there. I reached across the desk and squeezed his shoulder. He didn't pull away. Thursday, I said. 7 p.m. at Riverside Community Center. Bring pencils and patience. What should I teach? Nothing at first. Just show up. Listen. Remember what it's like to be someone who needs help instead of someone who gives orders. He stood up, still holding the empty coffee cup like it was something precious. Thank you for not giving up on me. That's what fathers do, I said, even when their sons forget to call them dad, even when it's hard, even when it takes 15 years. After he left, I sat alone in Victoria's old office, looking at the city she'd built her empire in. The research paper still waited on my desk. The work was never done, new trials to approve, new medications to develop, new people to help. But for the first time in 3 months, the weight of $40 million felt less like a burden and more like a tool. Victoria had been right. This wasn't just about money. It was about teaching the most important lesson, that the things worth having can't be inherited, they have to be earned. Character, dignity, love. The kind of wealth that matters when everything else is stripped away. I picked up the photo on my desk, Victoria and me, 25 years ago, young and foolish and in love. I'd brought it from my old apartment, one of the few things I'd kept after the divorce. I think he's ready to learn, I whispered to the photograph. Thank you for giving him the chance. Thank you for remembering what we had, even after everything fell apart. The city stretched out below, full of people fighting their own battles, learning their own lessons, trying to figure out what kind of wealth really matters. And in this office, a retired chemistry teacher sat with a second chance at being a father, at teaching the student who'd proven the hardest to reach. Thursday came. Ethan showed up at 6:55, wearing jeans and a plain shirt, carrying a box of pencils he'd clearly just bought. We walked into the community center together. The kids looked up suspicious, curious, willing to give him a shot if he was willing to earn it, just like his father had, just like his mother had hoped he would. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we were finally on our way home.